Okay, we'll come to variable elimination in a little bit. Let's first talk about image features. So these are why image features, because some of the very useful data that you can deal with are these few types of data. One is images, right? Because we take a lot of images for different scenarios. We take images not just in consumer photography, but also for a lot of industrial applications, a lot of service applications, and so forth. And so, for example, face images, traffic images, images of materials that are, or components that are being produced in an assembly line, and so forth. The other important variable types are audio and text, and video is a combination of some of these, right? So these are some of the important variable types, in addition to the vector type data that we have already been talking about. So if we have images or audio or text, we need a way to convert them into vectors, and that is basically the job of finding features from images. And then once we have extracted those features, we can put those features into the machine learning models that we've been talking about, and we can do classification and regression based on that. But this feature extraction requires domain knowledge, right? So you have an image. What is an image? Image is going to be a two-dimensional array of pixels, and possibly with a third dimension which codes the color R, G, and B. And this is going to be a very large array. So let's say an image could be of size 1 megapixel, image could be of size 1000 by 1000, right? So it has 1 million, roughly 1 million pixel values, and that's a very large set of dimensions for a single data. This is one sample. Similarly, you can have a second image that is also 1000 by 1000, right? So if you have only 10,000 images, and each of them is 1 million in dimension because it has 1 million pixels, that's a lot of data to deal with. So what we need to do is we need to take this image and boil it down to, let's say, 15 numbers. So you have 10,000 samples and 15 dimensions per sample. So what are those 15 numbers? Well, we cannot arbitrarily just subsample some pixels. We cannot just average the pixels. I mean, we can, but we need some more intelligent features that is based on domain knowledge of what are the underlying characteristics of images that are useful for recognition tasks or for classification tasks, etc. So let's look at what those features might be, and this is goes into a different kind of a course, which is image processing. So we will not go in detail into that course behind the motivations for these features. I will just list them so that you are cognizant of the need for finding good features based on your understanding of images. The first basic type of feature is that you take all these pixels that you have and we form an intensity histogram. So this is the intensity of a pixel. What is intensity? Intensity is the gray level. So if it is 0 intensity, it is black. If it is highest intensity, which is usually 255 for an 8-bit coded pixel, then it is white. So then what we can get is from 0 to 255, if we treat it as a continuous range, we will get some sort of a distribution, right, of pixels. And darker images will be shifted towards the left, brighter images will be shifted towards the right. Images with low contrast will have a narrow range, images with high contrast will have a broader range. Okay, so these all, let's say, end at 255. 0 to 255. Okay. So based on that, we can use the histogram or some summarization of the histogram itself as a feature, right? So we can divide this histogram into bins, and we can say that, okay, I will divide it into 10 bins of range 25 intensity levels each, and whatever is the area in one bin, that will be feature number x1. Okay, similarly I'll have feature number x10. Okay, so the 10th feature for a 10 bin histogram. So now all the images that are darker will have x1, x2, x3 as large values, whereas those that are brighter will have x 8, 9 and 10 as large values, right? So here I also assume that I have normalized this histogram, so that I have divided each bin by the total number of pixels in the image, so that they all add up to 1 and it's normalized. It doesn't depend on the size of the image. So because images come in different size, sometimes the size invariance of features is important, and we do that using something like this. Another way to describe this histogram would be to describe different statistical distributions of the histogram. So for example, I can say that I will describe the mean intensity, I will describe the variance of the intensity, I will describe the third central moment of the intensity, and so forth, which is the skew, and then kurtosis, which is the fourth central moment, and so forth. So I can also do that, and then these becomes my x1, x2 and x3, etc. So these could be the new features. Okay. Things become more interesting when we are talking about color images, because in color images you have red pixels, you have green pixels, and you have blue pixels, right? So basically, even if we take all the 0 to 255 ranges, we actually have bin values that will be in a cube, right? So what we can do is we can say that we will have 256 to the power 3 different features, and we can count each and every combination of RGB values as one feature within the pixel. So that would be a true color histogram, but usually we take we actually summarize it even further. Usually we do things such as we assume that different brightness of the same hue is the same color, or different saturations of the same hue is the same color. So what is hue? So basically, if you take the RGB values of a pixel, right? So we can assume that R plus G plus B is the brightness, right? Or the average of R, G and B is the brightness. And then if all of them are equal, then the color is not saturated. If one of them is much lower than the other two, one is much lower than or let's say the max of the three is much larger than the min of the three colors, then it is a saturated color. So these ideas can be used to develop color histograms that basically find which colors are more dominant in an image. And I will not go into the details, but whenever you are dealing with images, that is one of the features that you can select. Then just raw colors and raw intensity values are not important in images, are not the only thing that is important in images. Many times it's the texture that is important. So for example, if you have an image of a zebra, right, so then these stripes are important, right? Or if you have image of a particular butterfly, then let's say some other pattern is important. So these patterns are described by something called these patterns are called texture. In real life, texture means when you feel something, whether it is rough or smooth, that is texture. In images, it is basically the self-repeating patterns that are called texture. So to describe texture, we use something along the lines of we either use Fourier descriptors. So basically we take a two-dimensional Fourier transform of the image, and if there is a particular repeating pattern, we will see a spatial frequency will have a large power value, and that will give us some idea of what the texture in the image is like. So we can use Fourier descriptors, or we can use something along the lines of a GLCM, gray level co-occurrence matrix. GLCM, gray level co-occurrence matrix. So what that means is we will take the gray levels. So let's say we just have 4 gray levels. We have binned the image into 4 different gray levels, 0, 1, 2 and 3. So we have 0, 1, 2 and 3, and then we have 0, 1, 2 and 3. So we make a 2 by 2 matrix, a two-dimensional matrix where each row represents every gray level and each column also represents every gray level. And whenever we have two pixels that are together and they are both 0, then we will increment this by 1. If we have two pixels where one is 0 and the other is 1, we will increment this by 1, and so forth. Okay, so we will increment different bins of the GLCM matrix based on the which pixels appear together in the image. And if you have, for example, zebra where white and black are appearing together, you will see that the 0 3, which is white, is going to be 3 in this case, and is going to be 3, yes, and black is going to be 0. You will see that you will have a lot of these two values that will pop up. So that will capture a very stark contrast type of a texture. And then you can extract, you can use the bins of this GLCM matrix itself as features, or you can use different summarizations of this GLCM matrix as features, and so forth. So that's how we can extract texture from images. Then we also want to extract shapes from images. And for shapes, let's say most of the image is dark background and we have objects that are light in foreground, right? And we want to extract the shapes. Now you can see that the one problem that immediately occurs with images is that the same shape can actually be smaller in a smaller image, okay, or it can be far away from the camera, so it's not smaller but it appears smaller, but it's actually the same shape. Okay, or it can be rotated, or it can be translated left, right, up or down. So we want features that describe shape that we might want them to be invariant to these transformations depending on the application. So there is something called hue invariant moments. That basically extract these features that are that capture the shape, but they are invariant to the size scaling or the translation or the rotation. So what are invariant moments? So as we all know, there are moments which are basically statistical descriptors. So for example, we can compute the average, the first moment, which is mu ij. We can take it as a sum over all x positions and all y positions of pixels on images, and we can take x minus the central x, okay, and y minus the central y, okay, times the intensity of that at that particular location. So we can treat the intensity as some sort of a probability density, right? Some sort of a weighting factor, and based on that we can see where the average intensity of the image lies. And now what we can do is we can actually, so sorry, I forgot the powers here. So this is x minus, there's no, yeah, this is going to be power I and power j. So when I and j are 1, then basically we are looking at the first moment. So similarly we can have different powers and they will give you the second moment and so forth. And when you subtract the first moment from the second moment, you start to get central tendencies. So there is a whole bunch of formulas for 7 different invariant moments, Hu invariant moments, that can be used for calculating shape features.